Hello, everyone. How are you doing this particular day? Here we are to anyone who is in the US or from the US. Happy 4th of July. I hope you're having a wonderful celebration there. I hope there are a few of you actually who've got your phone under the table watching this as you're having some other kind of celebration. As I mentioned, you could do last week. Maybe coming from a Brit, that seems a bit rum, but anyway, I hope you're having a good time. And to everyone else, of course, hello and welcome to episode 15. That's a nice round number, isn't it? We've got this far, and there's still quite a ways to go. So thank you for joining me again, everyone. Let's do what I traditionally do now and see how everyone's doing. I've got Mikko. Hi, Clark. Hi, all. This particular Genesis Mike and the Mechanics fan is excited. Good stuff, Mikko. I hope you're going to enjoy this. And we've got my friend, I think, in St. Petersburg. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Send me something so I know. Very nice to see you again, Clark. Hello to you in beautiful Russia. Jeroen, hi Clark, I'm good, just posted a new song on my Instagram, glad to join your live stream again. Welcome back, Jeroen. Larissa, hello Clark, good afternoon, how are you? I'm pretty good actually, yeah. I wish you a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week. I'm so happy to see you and to watch today's episode. Thank you so much, Larissa. I always appreciate it that many of you come back time and time again for these episodes. I don't take that lightly. Veronica, thank you, Clark. So excited to join again. Greetings from Malaysia. Hello, Veronica. Sarah Morris, hi, Clark. And my hubby John is watching this today. Oh, good stuff, Sarah. Hello, John. How are you? We've got Arthur, hi Clark, looking forward to this show. 14 friends watching. Thank you, brother, from Ladies Man. Art, how you doing? And all your friends, thank you for joining in as well. And I don't know if you're all from the States, but if you are, good on you for joining me on Independence Day. Thank you very much. Joseph, good afternoon, Clark. Nice to see you again. What do you think about Loudness War? Please, no Loudness War on your forthcoming Journey Songs Volume 1 album. Joseph, that's an educated question. We'll come back to that. If you would ask me again, maybe not today, but I think because Journey Songs 1 is coming out imminently, I will be able to respond to that, Joseph. But it really, folks, what that's about is the fact that contemporary music, and this is true of the last 20 years, has attempt to get louder and louder and louder, which means it's more and more compressed. This is a technicality, which means it doesn't sound as good. So that's a real issue. Okay, thank you for that, Joseph. Richard, hi from a wet Midlands. Looking forward to the conversation with Mike Rutherford. Munchies and chocolate caramel coffee. Oh, very nice. Hope you will. I like your style, Richard. Moya, hi from rainy County Kildare. Clark, really looking forward to another episode of Journey Songs. They really make my week. I hope all is well in your world. Yes, it is actually. Thank you, Moya. Very much so. Matt, hello, Clark, and everyone here from the beautiful state of Michigan. Yay! Thank you for joining, and happy Independence Day to you. Great that you're joining, Matt. Steve, hi Clark, greetings from Colchester, and Ezra and Steve. Hello, Steve. Hello, Ezra. How you doing in historic Colchester? Very historic, actually. If you think about the story of Boudica, especially, and I wrote a song about Boudica. This is a slight aside, Steve and Ezra. I don't know if you know the song Boudica Cry from my Tomorrow album, which will be on Journey Songs too, but of course Colchester is famous in Boudica's Rebellion. Okay, that's a slight aside. Anton, hi Clark, Mike and the Mechanics is real 80s legends. Oh, they are real 80s legends, I agree. The last album is pretty good too. Cool. And I could go on here. Just a couple more. Kimberly, hi Clark and everyone. Lovely to see you. I've been looking forward to today's live stream all week. Hope you're well. Thank you, Kimberly. And Bernard, looking forward to today's episode. I could go on, and I'm going to very quickly. Hi, Clark. Love your emotional, fascinating stories. That's great, Melanie. That's what it's all about. And Tracy says, my friend Jill Marie introduced me to this. I know Jill Marie. Thank you, Jill Marie, and thanks for joining, Tracy. Juanita, hi, Clark. Looking forward to this week. Great. Juanita, thank you very much for joining in. And Zerdalak, I hope I pronounced that right. Zerdalak, lots of love from Sweden. Lots of love to you too, Zerdalak. And Annabelle, Here I am. Good. Oh, you're saying to someone else, I think there. Alex, my friend Alex in Hong Kong. Hello, Alex. Um, we'll have a very early morning tomorrow. It's midnight here in Hong Kong. We'll listen as long as I can. Thanks for your great music and sharing, Clark. Alex, go to bed if you need to. You can catch up on this, as you know, on YouTube and Instagram. I don't know if you know that, everyone, but I tend to post this on Instagram a couple of days later. So it's always a good place to see it because I kind of edit it a bit and tidy it up. Okay, everyone. I would love to go on, and you're all being so gracious in your welcomes. We got it's an interesting one. Dean says hi as a Phil Collins tribute. I'm really looking forward to it. I guess that means, Dean, that you actually do a tribute show to Phil Collins. So that would be very interesting. I don't sound anything. You probably sound really like him. I don't at all. So good on you. And Edmund, looking forward to the weekly mini concert. Hope Mike joins in too. No, he's not able to. This is a pre-recorded interview, as I think probably most of them are going to be, just for technical reasons, really. But anyway, that's for maybe a future time. And Robopol, hi Clark, how you doing, Robopol? Thanks for joining in. And David, I hope your mom is doing great. She is, David. She is. I think she's asleep right now, which is a good thing because she won't be traipsing around upstairs and making a lot of noise whilst I'm doing this. Okay, everyone. Lovely to see you. I am going to have a cup of tea quickly in my new mug. Biscuits behind, as you can see. So, folks, let's get to the story. Kelly makes a lovely comment here because it's so relevant. Love the whole JHJ, Mike and the Mechanics and Roachford relationship. Wonderful meeting of the minds. Yes, indeed, Kelly. There is something to be said for that, actually. And very quickly, Lax, happy 4th of July from cloudy Austin, Texas. Clark Lax, thanks very much for joining. I know it's a big day over there. So thank you, man. Hope you're keeping well. And Paul, type of biscuits this week? It's organic digestives. Again, Paul, very unadventurous of me, but I can't help it. I love them. Dove's Farm. Paul, you can get those up there, obviously. Dove's Farm organic digestives are my absolute favourite. They're fantastic. And Ferdouse, hello, Clark. Happy to see you again. Good to see you, Ferdouse. Thank you for joining us. And for anyone I didn't say hello to yet, I'm really sorry. Christopher, I see you up here. No, I don't. Sorry, there you are, Christopher. Hi, Clark, from a rainy Liverpool. Always look forward to your shows. Thank you for joining us, Christopher. I hold Liverpool in high regard. And it is strangely connected to my story regarding Mike and the Mechanics. So let's get to this, shall we? So, I'm going to go back many years because although I first met Mike Rutherford in the late 80s when Johnny Hates Jazz were promoting Our Hits and album and Mike and the Mechanics were promoting, and we met several times, and it was always a pleasure to meet Mike. For me and for the other Mike Nacito and Calvin, we always loved meeting him because he was just so calm. You know, he'd had so much experience in these situations. He was a very warm, calming influence. So it was always good to meet him. But actually, as I got to know him years later in writing with him, I realized that we had an interesting shared history of sorts because I'm not going to go into this too much. I can't speak for Mike here, but I'm just aware that the original three members of Genesis, so Mike, Tony Banks and Peter Gabriel, all met at a school called Charterhouse. Here's a quick picture for you. Charterhouse is an exclusive private school here in the county of Surrey in England, where I grew up as well. And I went to, years later, I went to another private school in the same county of Surrey called St John's. That's where I went. Now, perhaps some of you will look at these buildings and think, you know, wow, how wonderful, how magical, how Harry Potter-like. And weirdly, actually, the building you see with the green tower to the left was going to be used as the Harry Potter dining room, the Hogwarts dining room originally, and then they swapped to I think it was Oxford, somewhere in Oxford. Anyway, the point is that that's not what those places were like at all. They've changed a lot, they've evolved a lot, they've modernized a lot. But when Mike was there, Mike Rutherford was there, it was a pretty psychologically and emotionally brutal place. Very traditional, authoritarian. I went to my school, quite a few years later, being a bit younger than Mike, and it was also very tough psychologically. And interestingly, the more I researched this was some years ago, the more I discovered that there were a lot of British musicians who emerged in the 60s, 70s, 80s, who had gone to these elite private schools and were very fortunate to have the education they had. I mean, certainly that's how I feel. And my parents sent me there with absolutely the best of intentions, and it taught me a huge amount. But it was also scarring, and that's true, I know, for Mike Rutherford and the other guys in Genesis. And what's interesting about those experiences is that it's adversity, and sometimes adversity can make you reach further and higher or deeper in yourself and achieve things that perhaps you wouldn't have achieved had you not faced that limitation. I often talk about this, the power of limitation. Limitation is not necessarily a bad thing because it makes you find different ways of achieving your goal when it seems that there are barriers to you achieving that in a conventional sense. So a lot of British musicians from those decades turned to rock music as an escape from that authoritarian environment. I'm trying to paint a good picture for you. Dickensian, I guess, is the right word to use here. And Genesis were, at the forefront of that. And you think about it, that there's a group which is, musically very sophisticated, always have been, very cutting edge. And they probably would not have come together in the way that they did had they not had that shared experience as well. So I find that very interesting, and I related to Mike in many ways because that was my experience. As a kid going to school in the 70s in Britain, I'm not saying, by the way, poor me. I mean, there are people who had far worse challenges than me, okay? But this was just one aspect of my experience that I found hard. I looked at the world around me and thought, I need to do something here. I need to do something that helps me be an individual. And back then, the most important thing to a British kid was music. Not football, no computer games, not TV, not movies, music. And that was my escape. And it literally became that. And certainly that's true for Mike Rutherford. So that was an interesting kind of, parallel there. And then, interestingly, let's move forward now. And the idea of me writing with Mike, for Mike and the Mechanics, came about through someone that I'd known for many, many years. And his name is Brian Rawling. And Brian is a hugely successful record producer. He's produced Cher, Tina Turner, Lionel Richie, Rod Stewart, The Corrs, One Direction, Enrique Iglesias. He's done really well. And I've known Brian since the early 80s. And one of the reasons is that Brian was in a band signed to Rack Records, just as I was and Johnny Hates Jazz was originally. But Brian ended up doing some drumming on the TV shows that we did for Johnny Hates Jazz and live shows and promotion, because we had a drum machine, as you know, on most of the tracks. But Brian was there playing drums, and so he was very kind of close in as it all exploded for Johnny Hates Jazz and and we started doing really well. Years later, Brian actually played on the Rain Dance album. He played on a track called Heart of Hearts. He's a really good drummer. But then years later, he formed this production company called Metrophonic, and they had a huge hit with a track called Believe by Cher. So Brian started to get connected with everyone and anyone, in the music world. And he, got on well with Mike Rutherford, and it was he that suggested that me and Mike meet and try writing together. Now, I've got a great picture, actually, from the 80s of the three of us, me, Mike, and Calvin. In the foreground is Sue, who was in the promotion department at Virgin Records, a really good person. To the right, you'll see is JJ Bell, who I've talked about before, fundamentally important to the Johnny Hates Jazz sound. What a player. And then on the far left is Brian. So Brian was there with us and friends with all of us, good friends for the whole of the 80s. But he connected me with Mike Rutherford, and of course we got to remember that when I met Mike to write with him, so this would have been probably 2015, I'd say. It was a very different Mike and the Mechanics. Originally, as you know, this was the lineup, and in particular, we obviously have to make mention of Paul Carrack and Paul Young, the two incredible vocalists who were part of that original lineup. And it is really staggering when you think about it that Mike would be part of this, incredibly successful and profoundly musical rock band called Genesis, and then form his own band and have massive success as well. And it'd be really great stuff. I mean, I was very into Mike and the Mechanics, as I said before. So the version of the Mechanics I was going to be writing with and for is this version. And instead of Paul Carrack and the late Paul Young, sadly he passed away, of course, we've now got Andrew Roachford. You all know who Andrew is. Andrew's just a phenomenal singer, and a lovely guy as well. And then on the left there, you've got Tim Hauer. Again, I think a lot of you will know him by now. He's done a lot of stage work, but he's just really possessed his role in Mike and the Mechanics very much as Andrew Roachford has. So all I can say to you is that they are a lovely group of individuals, and I loved every minute of my time with them. And we had a lot of time together because we wrote for months and months and months and months refining these songs. So I went to Mike's house, and where he's got his own writing room studio, and we just started playing ideas to each other, and we hit it off immediately. It just started very, very quickly. And in actual fact, there's a song on the Let Me Fly album, the title song, Let Me Fly, came out of that first day. It just happened very quickly. Had a different chorus, I seem to remember, a little bit different anyway. And really for a lot of the songs, the songwriting team became me, Mike, and Andrew. And there's a lovely picture of the three of us in Mike's writing room with all his wonderful guitars behind him. And we had a blast. It went really, really well. And then, of course, I wrote with Mike and Tim, and I don't have any pictures of us. I think we were too focused on trying to finish the songs. Whereas me and Mike and Andrew kind of wrote quite a lot together in that time. And this led to the album Let Me Fly, which was completely new material. I wrote just over half of the album with the guys. And following that was an album called Out of the Blue, and I co-wrote 3 songs on that. The 3 new songs, because the other songs were re-recordings of original Mechanics material from Mike and Mechanics Mark 1, but with Andrew and Tim singing. So I co-wrote the 3 new ones, one of which was Out of the Blue, which I really liked that track. So let's see. So interestingly, folks, and then I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Interestingly, we did this. The song that kind of stood out for me from when we were working on Let Me Fly was a song called Don't Know What Came Over Me, and that became the first single from Let Me Fly. And in my opinion, it's just a great record. I'm really proud of that. And when I eventually saw the Mechanics performing, and they did Don't Know What Came Over Me, I was in the audience, very incognito, and I got very emotional, and I felt very proud because, as you know about me, I don't really write for other people. It's not my thing. But with Mike Rutherford and Andrew and Tim, it's a complete exception, partly because of the characters they are, great characters, all 3 very talented. But I have to say that, just working with Mike Rutherford is enriching for me because he, without saying anything, just imparts experience, this huge depth of experience. And I am really enriched by that. I come away in some way, on some subliminal level or not so subliminal level, having learnt something about music and my part in it. So, yeah, I was very proud. So, but the nice thing is that I think that, Mike felt, similarly about my presence in that environment, that songwriting environment. He very much appreciated it for different reasons, of course. So that's wonderful. Okay, now let's quickly check in on you. Let's see how we're all doing because we've had quite a few. Hero. Hello, Clark. Please come to Japan again. How you doing, Hero? Nice to see you. Hero, we met Hero when me and Mike Nacito, when we went to play live in Japan in 2019. Hero, was that right? I hope you're keeping well, man. Konnichiwa. And what have we got? We've got Sylvia. Hi from Porto, Clark, and everyone. Always try not to lose every Sunday's Journey songs. Looking forward to today. Love Mike and the Mechanics. Over My Shoulder is an anthem to me. Such great memories. It's a great track, isn't it? And, and Paul Carrack is just, one of the great singers, as Paul Young was. But interestingly, I think Andrew and Tim are their equal. They're just their own people. They sound they sound like themselves. They don't have to sound like other people. Kelly says saw Roachford live in November. Absolutely breathtaking vocals. More tickets rescheduled for this year. Yeah, great. Yeah, he's a fantastic singer. Dean says Paul lived in the same village as myself. Incredibly sad loss. Oh, this is Paul Young. Love the guy's vocals. Yeah, I mean, we have to give Paul Young his dues here. This is, of course, not Paul Young from the Q-Tips, the other Paul Young we know. This is Paul Young from Sad Cafe originally. Great singer. Roz, hello Roz. Only went to see Mike and the Mechanics because of that superb gig at Birmingham Symphony Hall. Oh, that's a great venue as well, Roz, isn't it? I'm sure they were brilliant. Edmund saying the living years in his vinyl collection. How fantastic. Mark and Kirsty, it's a small world. Charterhouse is only 12 miles from me. I understand what you were saying, Clark. Music is the escape route you discovered. Fascinating to hear about you connecting with Mike and Andrew and Tim and the songwriting from 2015 onwards. I know these albums, yet had no idea you co-wrote them. Don't know what came over me. Always moved me to tears. Yeah, it still gets me, actually. You may have a different reaction when I perform it in a few minutes. Okay, everyone, I'm going to get on with the interview because it's about 15 minutes long, all right? I just went with this. I hope you're enjoying it so far, and I hope you'll enjoy this. Let me just mention one thing. I talked to Mike about the fact that when he writes playing guitar and bass guitar. He plays both brilliantly. Bass pedals. Now, these are... Imagine if you see a church organ and the player is actually playing low notes with their feet on these pedals. Well, some people, not many people, have just the pedals, not the organ, just the pedals, and they play bass notes on them. Different sounds than an organ, of course. And Mike does this quite a lot as part of his process. He plays bass on these bass pedals as he's writing. And then he uses a drum machine called an MPC. And an MPC, to any of you musos out there, you'll know very well. This is a legendary drum machine. This isn't a much earlier version of the MPC 3000, which I had 2 of those actually not so long ago. Fantastic drum machines. And if you see those grey squares, they are what we call drum pads, and a sound is assigned to those pads, and you can assign different sounds to them. And you play the drums by hitting the pads with your fingers. Well, it's not a simple process, folks, because to create a whole groove or a whole piece of music based around your varying drum patterns that you've put together on this machine is no easy thing. And again, something that I have in common with Mike Rutherford, that I work a lot on an MPC here. In fact, if you look to my left, up here, that's an MPC. That's an MPC 4000. So you can see the grey pads there again. There you go. Don't make any sound right now because it's not switched on. Okay, so let's proceed with the interview. I'll see you on the other end. Mike, thank you very much for being part of Journey Songs. Delighted to have you on board. And
pleasure.
Really, Mike, my first question to you is this. When we first met in the capacity of writing together, one thing that really struck me was, and I'm sure you've been told this many times, is your chord inversions when you're playing guitar are absolutely unique to you. Now, maybe as a guitarist you would argue that point, but I remember first hearing you play in person, and my sense was this could only be you. And I just wondered if that is something that you've become conscious of over the years, or if it's just something that naturally happens with you.
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, it happens to me. I think part of that process, as you saw, is my chord shapes and always playing bass pedals at the same time.
Yes.
So I can often play smaller chords and hold chords and not change the bass pedals, changes the chord shapes and the inversions in a sense. And that's sort of, occasionally there are certain things that I sort of do unintentionally, just what I do and what I like really. But it gives you a sort of freedom sometimes, because the bass pedals can play some really weird notes you would never normally play, and they appear at the time of writing it.
So that's another question I had actually for you, because again, looking at how you wrote with me, you seem to have these 3 components of yourself as a guitarist and bass player, your bass pedals, and your drum machine, your MPC. So I was curious as to how that combination evolved, and if that was something that came out of your time, with early Genesis or later Genesis, or was that a mechanics thing?
No, Genesis days. I mean, I'm always a huge fan of drum machines. I tend to start a writing process, period. When I start writing songs, I tend to start with drum machines. I get the old MPC out, whatever it was, or the Lin, and write a whole lot of sort of nice drum machine parts to get me going. So when I try and write some songs or bits, I start with a groove that's hopefully a little bit original or different. Like an example of it is that Genesis song called Mama. It was a drum machine. That drum machine looped something I had. Drum machines are a big part of where I start from, yeah.
That's very interesting, because you're really, really, I mean, for just viewers who are tuning into this, you're extremely adept with the MPC, and a lot of the loops you work with are hyper modern. You've obviously got the capacity to reach into what we would perhaps term as different eras, but a lot of them are very modern. And I wondered if that came about as a result of listening to a lot of modern music, or you just you feel it that way.
I think I was always that way. I mean, the MPC and sort of I have loops and delays and stuff going. It's what really I really enjoy doing. If I was starting out now, I would be a beats guy, wouldn't I? They call it beats.
Yeah.
There you go. I just write a loop. I love that though. Some of the things, a lot of the sort of songs the living ears groove, those little things. It makes you write, as we wrote together, in a sort of certain way. So it gives you a bit of a platform and a setting to write a song on.
That's really interesting. So even Genesis, you were still doing that with a Lindrum or MPC 60, I guess?
Well, the number one, yeah. Me less so, because Phil was so good.
Right.
He would start with a mono MPC drum loop.
Yeah.
Sort of 4-bit or 8-bit, whatever it was called those, with a crunchy sound. And then we'd write to it. He'd get the loop going. He'd sing. I'd play guitar and pedals. Banks would play chords. And that sort of things evolved from those jams.
That is very, very cool. That actually follows on to another question I had then, Mike, just going back to Genesis, but how that transition to Mike and the Mechanics. In terms of your own process as a writer, I know this is a bit of a generalization, you've already said that drum patterns and grooves can be a fundamentally important starting point with a song. But are there any, you've co-written so many of the big Genesis songs, obviously all the Mike and the Mechanic ones. Are there any particular songs where you remember they started with specifically a melodic idea or a chord progression or even a lyrical idea? For example, Turn It On Again or Follow You, Follow Me. Were they also kind of drum oriented, or was there some other story there?
Follow You, Follow Me was going to be a long song, but the sort of little song part with my guitar riff and then Tony's chords and Phil's vocal line initially became such a nice little sort of pop song, a sweet song without being too cheesy. So we left it. I wrote the lyrics to that song in about 5 minutes, and then went, it can't be that easy. But it kind of was, as you know, you don't try too hard. So that was more of a sort of just a melody and then a lyrical phrase. Turn It On Again was actually just basically, once again, a strange rhythm. It was in 13, which I had no idea at the time. I thought it was in 4/4. Phil said, hang on, this is not normal. I played a riff and they went 3, and off we go. So each song has a nice sort of story to it.
And in that sense, how did things change when you started writing specifically for, Mechanics Mark 1? And obviously, it was Chris Neal, it was B.A. Robertson. Did the process stay the same, or did they bring another element to it that changed it?
Well, it stayed the same, but by being different people, it was a different element, because basically writing with Phil and Tony, things go a certain way. Writing with Chris Neal and B.A. Robertson, and yourself, as you see, things go a sort of certain route. 2 people in the room at the same time. It has a little journey it takes, and that's the great part about co-writing, I think.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to Don't Know What Came Over Me, which is what I wanted to focus on as one of the 2 songs today. Because I remember when you first played me and Andrew Roachford, everyone, the idea, because the 3 of us wrote the song together. You played us I remember you singing the chorus melody. You had Don't Know What Came Over Me and the chords and everything. And it was very impactful, Mike. I remember saying to you, that's brilliant. That's a beautiful, beautiful idea. And I wonder because it actually turned out to be quite a sad song. It's up-tempo, it sounds glorious, but there is something innately painful about the story of the song. Do you think that was there from the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. In the title itself, Don't Know What Came Over Me, just that line I had, was lovely about a guy who's got life's perfect. He's happily married with somebody, and he fucks it up. He has an affair, he does something, goes wrong, and it's entirely his fault. So it becomes sad. But I must say, first and foremost, everyone listening, I so enjoyed writing these songs with you, Clark. We had the best time together. We kind of sat down day one, and it just sort of worked. And a good example on this song, What Came Over Me, had a great start. The chords and the Don't Know What Came Over Me, but then what you added to it, some of the second bit, the sort of the pre-hook, to the chorus, and then to me the chorus, after the chorus is done, I thought great. That last sort of chorus tag, always you, it just has a lovely little, almost like sort of another sort of chorus hook to it.
You were saying you heard it recently.
I think well, I just my son showed me how to go on Spotify, which is, I have to say, is great. I put in a Crowded House song, and you put it as press a button called radio, and it gives you songs that you like that, And song 4 was Don't Know What Came Over Me. And I thought, wow, I was really proud of it. It's a very, very strong song, I think, with sort of endless hooks, actually. Andrew sang it obviously beautifully. But I think the other thing that has helped me working with you is that, so we always had the main line, which is always a great start because it comes with the melody. But then after that, I'm a little lazy. Usually most of the lyrics, I'm a little lazy. And we got all main bits, just sort of finish a couple of verse lines here. You're very particular, which I like, on making sure that all the lines have a reason to be there. They're not filler lines. And I think that was what worked well with our relationship.
I hadn't really seen it that way. I think you mentioned that at the time, but I'm never quite sure if I'm being pedantic or not. But I think
it's great. It's so important that you won't let it go.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true. Mike, let me move on to another song, which is Best Is Yet to Come. And I actually just wanted to bring Are You Ready into this as well, and I'll explain why in a minute. But Best Is Yet to Come was obviously a slightly different dynamic because it was just you and me, and with Tim in mind as singing it. And then Tim got involved, and on we went. But do you, when you're writing and you're thinking about the various different fantastic singers you've worked with, fantastic vocalists, let alone writers in their own right, does that change how you're perceiving melody? Are you thinking this has got to work for that voice? Or is it like the song is the song?
I think the song is the song. I think you're probably the same, actually. I mean, you can't worry about that. Also, we have two singers to choose from in the Mechanics, which is a wonderful luxury, and they're both great singers. No, not really. But we both sort of knew at the time that it was a Tim-type song, a bit rockier and more. Andrew's so R&B and soul-y. He'd always do it, but it was more Tim's street, I think. It's a nice feeling knowing that you got the song, one of the two voices is going to be fantastic for it. But I don't think I really worry about that until we go and record it, because I know all the songs, both singers can make it sound fantastic,
Yeah, absolutely. Now I wanted to mention Are You Ready as well, because Mike, I'm thinking that might have been the first track we actually worked on together. I know Let Me Fly was very early on as well.
That was the very first thing, Let Me Fly, actually.
Okay.
We did, and it was day one.
Yes,
remember?
It came out very quickly, didn't it? And then, of course, Andrew, with his soulful approach to vocals, kind of, expanded and molded it. And Are You Ready is, obviously is designed for live, isn't it? And so is Best Is Yet to Come. They're just so energetic. How have they changed over time? Now you've played them live quite a lot. Have they evolved in any way? Have you thought, you know what, if I'd been recording that again, I would have done this differently? Or have they stayed pretty much as they are?
Well, they all got longer. Everything live gets longer, first of all, as you know. You extend bits here and there. I think really the big thing is, we worked with Metrophonic with Brian and Paul Meehan, was fantastic. But they're more programmers and stuff, so it wasn't very much live drums. So you go on stage and on tour, there's a bit of loop playing, a bit of sort of percussion stuff, but the basis is live drums, which is always slightly more exciting. And so it kind of grows up in a way. But the record was good too. That sort of weird, once again, my old MPC stuff on Are You Ready? Weird, quirky loops. It sort of made us got us off the ground, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Mike, plans for the future. Obviously, Genesis tour coming up. How's that looking?
Well, you tell me. Let's toss that coin. Genesis now have gone from last November to this last April to now mid-September in the UK. I'm hoping middle of September is possible. I'd love to start in England. It's been great for us to open up our sort of next round in the UK. But hopefully that's going to happen. And then we got America, East Coast, mid-November, which I think will happen for certain.
Right.
But I sort of feel there's a chance it might happen.
Yeah, great.
I'd like it to happen, yeah.
Great. And then, so by the end of the year, or does the tour go into next year as well?
Well, like we always do, we'll do a couple of legs and sort of have a chat, make sure we're having a good time, and then do a little bit more. I think I'd like to do Europe and the East Coast, West Coast. But it's sort of you do it and see. And we're not doing big, long. It's sort of 18, 20 shows per run. I look forward to it.
Yeah, great. Okay. Mike, thank you very much for having this chat. I know we obviously chat a lot in non-interview circumstances, but I'm actually realizing that I do have a lot more questions for you. I do want to say, Mike, it was an absolute pleasure for me and a great honor working with you. And I said this at the time. I've said it many times in interviews since, that certain tracks of yours were fundamental in my musical journey. And you've probably heard a lot of people say this about Silent Running, but for me it was absolutely up there, along with another record roughly around that time, which was This Is Not America by David Bowie and Pat Metheny.
Right, good company, yeah.
Good company. And they just had such a vibe and were so influential for me, those two records. And so, when Brian, as you mentioned, Brian Rawling earlier, suggested we get together and see what happened in writing terms, it just seemed very natural, and it happened very naturally. And I just want you to know I remember it with great fondness.
Well, like I said, I enjoyed it so much too. So I love about co-writing. You and I get in the room for the first time, not really knowing each other at all, and you sort of plug in and just, it's the interaction. You play something, I play something, I react to what you're playing, what you're singing, and vice versa. And that co-writing process is for me so exciting and always different. So we must do some more. Make sure of that.
We must indeed, and we will. All right, Mike, thank you very much for joining us on Journey Songs.
Okay, well, we'll stay in touch and catch up as soon as we can get together.
All right, man. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Mike. Well, there you go. That was my interview with Mike Rutherford, and I hope you caught all of that. I was going into kind of an insider's perspective on how his writing process unfolds, and it turns out mine as well. I'm glad. It seems like a lot of you enjoyed that. I'm really glad to hear that. So wonderful. Okay, everyone. Oh, hello, Cliff. How you doing? I don't know if everyone, you probably remember Cliff was on the episode with What Other Reason. I interviewed Cliff. Fantastic composer, orchestrator, arranger, 80s classical supremo. Thank you very much, Cliff. Yeah, it was, like with you as well, a pleasure, because we're, musical family, so we all speak the same language. Let's see. Lax says, any chance of a third collaboration with Mike and Mechanic soon, Clark? I don't think so, Lax, because the Genesis tour really has to unfold now, and typical of those kind of big tours, it might actually get added to and go on longer and longer. So we'll see. I did speak to Mike about it a little bit, and we both kind of said, well, we'll take a rain check. My friend from St. Petersburg says, great interview. Thank you, man. Remember to send me a message and try and explain to me how your name is pronounced, okay? Vanessa, hello, Vanessa. Interesting interview. I hope you thought so. Thank you, Vanessa. Who else have we got here? Sylvia, great interview. Loved seeing Mike, and I hope Genesis comes to South Florida. I'm sure they will. Who else have we got? Keon, I heard you say that Turn It On Again was kind of a sad song. No, I was referring to Don't Know What Came Over Me, which is the one I'm going to perform, a much later Mechanic song that I co-wrote. No, Turn It On Again is not very sad, is it? Angie, such an amazing interview. Mike's so knowledgeable in this. You both must do more co-writing. I'm sure we will. Actually, we've talked about writing a song together for my next new project. Not Journey Songs 1 or Journey Songs 2, but what may well be called Journey Songs 3. We'll see. Okay, and Sonia, Genesis, legendary band, Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel, bright singers. I think that they made this band unforgettable before they left. Absolutely, yes, very much so. They were all really, really integral to that band. I've recorded with Tony Banks. I recorded on one of his solo albums, and Tony is just a master pianist and keyboard player. I know Peter from my time down at Real World Studios in Bath, because he owns the studio, and Peter is, anyone who would be familiar with his music will know that he's just a fantastic talent and very, very worldly and big-hearted individual. Paul says, when you were at school, did the headmaster say, well, boy, did your hamster eat your website again? Seriously, though, we'll have questions like you asked, Mike, and we need your new forum soon. Good point, Paul. The website is going to go live this week or next week, okay? There's a few technicalities that I'm wrestling with here. and the forum is already set up on there. So I'll announce that on social media. Okay. Okay, everyone. Lovely message here from Sylvia. Loved seeing you and Mike, the interview. Hope we work together again. Yes, absolutely. And Kelly says, Tears for Fears also Bath-centric. Yes, it was a bit of a group down there in Bath. Okay, so folks, let's move on to the song. Now, just remember with this that I've never performed this before. I don't think I'd ever played it through from start to finish before, because when you're writing, you kind of tend to write in sections and you focus on one bit or the other. Whereas, Mike and Andrew and Tim have toured, extensively since we did the album Let Me Fly, and so they know it like the back of their hand. I've never played this before, so I've done a couple of run-throughs. So bear with me, okay? Quick cup of tea first. So, here we go. Don't know what came over me. I was such a lucky man. Before I turned the tables, you were everything to me. Now I'm like a fallen angel, made a promise to myself that I would love nobody else. But I don't know what came over me. No, I don't know what came over me. I was such a fool when all I ever cared about was you. Always you. It was only for a night of momentary madness, but I paid a heavy price for these endless days of sadness, made a promise to myself that I would love nobody else. But I don't know what came over me. No, I don't know what came over me. I was such a fool when all I ever cared about was you. Always you. Always you. Always you. Made a promise to myself that I would love nobody else. But I don't know what came over me. No, I don't know what came over me. No, I don't know what came over me. No, I don't know what came over me. I don't know what came over me. Well, I hope I did the song proud, because I love the original version, and Andrew sings it so well. But there you go. My potentially one and only rendition of Don't Know What Came Over Me. Always love that song. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Yeah, a few people are mentioning it. It has a lot of pathos. It has a sadness to it, I think, anyway. And I'm not going into the subject matter of the song too much, because there was more of a backstory there about really how me and Mike Rutherford met. So, everyone, as I said, website is coming really soon, either this week or the following week, just getting technicalities sorted out. Remember, if you sign up to the mailing list, you get a free download of a song I did before I joined Johnny Hates Jazz. God, blimey, that's going back a bit, isn't it? But it's a good track. Really surprising track, actually. I only found it recently. And, of course, there's the forum. And then it's going to expand from there. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to sign off in a minute. I appreciate everyone giving me some lovely feedback. If you look, I'm looking over here, folks, as I'm looking at the screen and reading what you're saying. And thank you so much. Really beautiful. Okay. Next week, folks, in preparation for me and other Mike Nacito, performing in London the week after that, July the 14th, July the 15th, at Boysdale in Canary Wharf. We're doing two nights at that venue. I will be looking at the song Magnetized. It's time for Magnetized. And I know I've said this before about Mike coming on, Mike Nacito, that is, and having a bit of an interview with me, but we just texted each other earlier, and he's up for it, so he's able to do it now. So hopefully that will happen. Magnetize is going to be a good one as well, to talk about. It's a bit of a backstory there. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. It's been a long one, so I hope that's all right with you all. I'll let everyone go back to Independence Day in the States. Go back to anything else that you're celebrating, and for some of you to go to bed in Southeast Asia, get some sleep. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week for Journey Songs episode 16, and like I said, we'll be doing Magnetize then. So take care of yourselves. Have a really good week, and we will speak on the forum when it goes live. I'll tell you more about that either in this week or within this week or next week. All right. Adios, everyone. Take care.